Whoever is working for Massive Entertainment and is working on the exotics needs to start putting more thought into what they are creating, because this video is about the Ridgeway's Pride exotic chest. And welcome back to the channel, to the Division 2. We are going to be talking about this chest because I've sat there with my mates and grinded for hours and hours and hours and hours, and after putting in about 30 seconds of gameplay, you can instantly tell that this chest sucks. You will see the gameplay in the background. This chest is based on a run and gun sort of mechanic. The talent is, I think it's called Bleeding Edge or something like that. Basically, when you are within 10 meters of an enemy and you shoot them, it will apply the bleed status effect. Every enemy within 10 meters of you that is bleeding will give you armor back. It regenerates per second. There's no bonus armor. This goes up to your maximum amount of armor. So on a DPS build with an SMG run and gun style, I had 726,000 armor. I have said these developers need to work on survivability for a long time, because in the summit earlier on today, we were playing to actually get hold of the project and get this exotic chest piece. And I'm not even joking, within 1 second flat, I took 1.8 million damage from a Lucy Warhound. The minigun Warhound dealt 1.8 million damage in 1 second flat. With 700,000 armor and 350k health, I'm not going to withstand that. I'm dead in a second. Even if you have a full survivability build to the point where you can't deal much damage, and you have 2.1 million armor, you have 350 or whatever, like say you even have 500,000 health, that's 2.6 million basically hit points you have. So 1 second flat and then 800k from any other enemy on legendary difficulty, and you are still dead. I've always said it's not really a problem with the enemies being bullet sponges, because your builds can get to the point where they are powerful enough to deal enough damage so that you are killing enemies even on legendary. But the amount that enemies hit us for is ridiculous. So you can see the gameplay in the background. We're running around like headless chickens because you apply bleed to an enemy, you stand within 10 meters of them, and you're getting armor back. Depending on the amount of enemies that are within 10 meters of you, the amount of armor you get back is going to be increased. And it's per second. It doesn't state how long it lasts for, whether it procs over like 5 seconds. It just says that if there's one enemy within 10 meters that is bleeding, you get 1%. 2 enemies is 4, 3 enemies is 9%, 4 is 16, and 5 is 25%. If you are playing on legendary difficulty, you will probably not have 5 enemies within 10 meters of you, and there is no way, absolutely no fucking way, you are withstanding the damage they are outputting when you are that close. If there's a heavy, they have a stinger hive, they have their minigun, they will melee you, and their melee hits for like 1 million damage itself. A standard red bar enemy can deal like 800k damage in the matter of a second. So with a normal DPS build, you're not going to be able to withstand any amount of damage in order to get enough enemies that close so that you can get your armor back. It's the most pointless talent to any chest piece I've ever seen. If you are wanting a survivability chest piece, then just put on the tardigrade. That also benefits your entire team, not just you. If you're wanting it solo and you want a little bit more armor, go for the unbreakable talent. If you want to have a survivability build, then do not run this. Pick anything else in the game over this. There are so many problems with the chest piece, and the biggest one is how long it takes to get hold of. The next thing about the chest piece is it's based on survivability. You're going around, you're making targets bleed, you're standing close to those bleeding enemies, and you're getting your armor back. Yeah, all of the stats that are dropping with this are red. Red damage stats are dropping with this that regenerates armor. So you kind of have to put it on either a hybrid or a DPS build. You can't really have it in a survivability build because it's not going to do much. It's completely pointless to have this in your build altogether, and I'll tell you right now exactly what you need to get your hands on this piece. Because after you hear the grind, even if that does sound cool to you, or getting your armor back when you're making enemies bleed and you're standing close to them, I've said it time and time again, enemies don't hold each other's dicks in this game. You're not going to have 5 enemies, even at the best of times, standing within 10 meters of you. They're always spread out, they're always hidden behind cover. But in order to get this chest, you have to enter the summit. So it's all based on the expansion. You need to own Warlords of New York, but you go into the summit mode, and you have to get exotic components. There are 5 to get, and that is 1 for each of the difficulties available in the summit. So 1 for normal, hard, challenging, heroic, legendary. Every 3 floors in the summit game mode, you will find a key. It's a summit access key. Then just before the elevator, every 3rd floor that takes you up and gives you like a soft checkpoint, there will be a room, or the box can even sometimes be directly outside of the elevator, but there will be a room, you open the box, and you have a chance to get an exotic component. I've seen in my comments section, someone said they ran levels or floors 20 to 50 3 times and didn't get a single exotic component. We went through the very first time because the developers never even explained it. The way they put it across was you go to floor 100, you take out the hunters at the very top, and you get a project. Then you have to go back in and do other things, and you will eventually get this chest. It doesn't work like that. We went through our very first playthrough, floors 1 to 100, and just I'll base it on my stats alone, my RNG, my luck. We got all the way through floor 100, completed the summit mode. The only exotic components I had were heroic and legendary. Never got normal, hard or challenging. So we had to go back through, and the only one we didn't actually need to get was legendary. So we had to go today back through and do normal, hard, challenging and heroic, rushing through those floors so that it didn't take hours and hours and hours just to get these exotic components. I've heard you have a 20% chance, but that still isn't high enough. We've had to go through so many floors in the summit game mode in order to get these exotic components. And that's probably why the developers are telling people it's highly replayable content. Because as soon as you've got this exotic chest or you're playing through trying to get your exotic components, they're seeing stats for players keep going in and out of the summit game mode, so they get approval. Oh, it's definitely replayable content because people are going back in and doing it again. The only reason you're going back in is to either just continue playing the mode because you enjoy it, or to go for these exotic components. So once you have all 5 exotic components and no time before, you have to make it back to floor 100. Floors 81 to 100 are legendary difficulty. I've spoken to Lewis, who has gone through some floors, and for an example, if you have the terminal objective, as soon as you interact with that laptop, you have all these legendary enemies that are spawning right in your face. They literally spawn at doors that are bang on, like directly on top of these objectives. So solo, I really don't think you're going to have any chance at all of getting this exotic chest piece. It's another piece of gear that is locked behind content in this game. But if you do manage to make it from floors 1 to 100 with these exotic components, you get to the top, you then have to take down the hunters. You have to complete floor 100. You can't, there's no way to skip it. You don't just make it to floor 100 and that's it. And the highest floor you can start on is 91. So if you don't get these exotic components on your first playthrough, you have to go through the final 10 floors again, which is something we had to do. But we made it to the top, we took down the hunters again, and we got the first part of the project. But you're not done there, nowhere near done. After you've got the exotic components, got to floor 100, picked up the first part of the project, you then have to make sure that you have an exotic component from dismantling any exotic in the game. You have to have a weapon with a sadist talent on it. And by the way, you can just go to any vendor, have any weapon, just go recalibrate sadist onto it, hand that in, so that can skip part of it. But then you have to have a piece of gear with the perfectly unbreakable talent, which is the Badger Tough chest called 0 Fs. Once you've obtained 0 Fs, you also have to hand that in for them to go and give you it back once you've completed the project, so they could have just taken it out of the grind. But once you've done the weapon with the sadist talent, the 0 Fs chest, and I mean, I can tell you right now, they did give 0 fucks when they designed this project to get this exotic piece. And then once you've also given in your exotic component, you move on to the second and final part of the project in order to get your chest piece. This is by far the most tedious, it is based on RNG, and is going to be extremely frustrating if you have gone through and done all of the open world hunters. I've now experienced it, done all of it. We all did it earlier on today, and we did DARPA Research Labs, which was Badger Tough, targeted loot. We did that 10 times to get 1 0 Fs. Within all 10 runs, I didn't even have a single named item, so I actually think they've lowered the drop chance of the 0 Fs or named items altogether just to make this even tougher. But once you've completed that first part, you get the second bit of the project. You have to hand in 3 keys for each of the 6 factions in the game. As well as that, you need to eliminate 3 Hyenas Outcast True Sons cleaners, and Rikers. That's just the base factions. You don't need to do Black Tusk for whatever reason. But then on top of that, you have to do 3 rogue agents and 3 hunters. So if you have done all of your open world hunters, you either have to find someone else's game, or you're back in that fucking Summit game mode, going up to floor 100 again, just to kill those hunters. So if you go in there blind and you don't know about the exotic components, then you'll complete it for the first time, then you'll find out about the components, you'll go back in there to find all of them, and go to the top to get your project again, and then if you've done your open world hunters, you're back in there to fight the hunters again. So that's 3 times they get you to play this mode. There's their highly replayable content. But there are a couple of good things. When you are taking down the named bosses, because each of the enemies you have to defeat that are like hyenas, outcasts, true sons, so on and so forth, they have to be named enemies. I do have a couple of tips which we'll get to in a minute, but we had to take all of those down. Rogue agents are a rare encounter, they're just a random spawn. So what we did is, because they're available from hard to legendary difficulty in the summit, we started on floor 21 I think it was when it gets hard difficulty, or 11, I think it might have been 11. And we just planned to go all the way up to 50 when it gets heroic and then just drop back out, start again. But lucky enough for us, we got to floor 27 and we encountered the rogue agents. If you are doing this, I would highly recommend you do it in a group of a minimum of 2 people, because that way, when you encounter the rogue agents, they always spawn 1 more than your group size. So if there is just you, you're going to have 2 rogue agents, you're going to have to do those encounters twice. Whereas if there are 2 of you, then you will guaranteed have 3 rogue agents, and all the progress from all of these enemies will count for every player in the group. So we went into the summit, we took down the rogue agents. We luckily had some of the open world hunters left, so we did the puzzles and we took down those hunters. If not, we would have had to go back into the summit and do floor 100 again. And then we had to take out the faction bosses. Bounties are probably going to be your best bet. If you have a heroic bounty, they can spawn 3 bosses, so that will instantly be all of them eliminated for that entire faction. What we did was a hyena bounty, we did an outcast bounty, we did Lincoln Memorial because that spawns 4 true son bosses, named bosses. So that's the 3 main factions done. Then we went over to New York and we took down Wall Street, just on normal difficulty. Difficulty doesn't matter. But we took down Wall Street, so James Dragov, the Duchess before you actually get to the end, and then Ron and Knuckles. So that was actually 4 bosses, but we got our 3 done. And then, for whatever reason and how they balanced the New York bounties, we took on a cleaner bounty. And it literally, this bounty had us fucking trekking around the whole of New York. We got to one area, had to take out a group of enemies, and it tells you go like 150 meters to the next area, take out another group. Then we had to do it again. So that was like 450 meters, like half a kilometer of running around, killing enemies. Then it threw us up onto a rooftop to fight another group of enemies. And then we had to make our way around this dodgy building that has a stupid entrance point that took us a couple of minutes to find. You go in there, all 3 bosses are spawning at the same time. But that's how we did it. So Lincoln Memorial and then bounties, or you can just run missions on normal to keep going back through and just take down the bosses. But for the Rikers, definitely Wall Street, Lincoln Memorial for True Sons. Then the other 3 is either bounties or just run missions. So at the end of it, you've seen the gameplay. I really fucking despise this chest. I am so mad that I've put so much time in to get this piece of shit. And I would strongly recommend, unless you are, as Agent Kelso says, when you're in the summit mode, that's it. Like one of the NPCs in this game, they've programmed her to say something along the lines of, oh, it's going to take you a while to get to the top, but then again, you might be a masochist. So they know how boring and tedious this mode is, and they programmed the NPC to tell you that shit herself. So unless you are a masochist, you want to play through all this content and spend hours, I'm going to say the grind probably took us, I mean, from the very first day of trying Summit all the way until we've obtained the chest, it's probably a good 40 hours. I'm going to just throw a big range out there between 30 and 50 hours. So, sometime between that sort of time range. I know it's a big gap, but I don't think you'll get this done, and like unless you've picked up tips from a video and stuff, I don't think you'll get this done in any less than 20 hours. And at the end of the day, the chest is so bad. You literally go into a mission, and if you're solo, no, absolutely, like it's even worse. If you are solo, there is no way you are going to withstand enough damage from enemies with a red build and making them bleed and standing close to them just to get your armor back, because there's no bonus armor or anything like that. It just gives you regen on your current armor. You pretty much have to have, like, for this to be a viable option of an exotic chess piece to run, you basically need to have a minimum of 2 players, and one of them running like a bleed hive, so the stinger hive or something like that, to make a load of enemies bleed, and then you're a little bit safer to run around like a headless chicken. Other than that, this seems like complete shit. I don't know what it'd be like in PvP. I don't touch PvP, don't plan to, but for PvE, this is dreadful. I was going to show a build, but there's completely no point. If you're going to run this, just stick it on your current DPS build and run it. Absolutely no point trying to run survivability with this, or a skill build, definitely not. You wouldn't run that anyway. But I've shown you how to get it, I've explained how bad it is, and that's going to do it for the video. I really hope that if they do bring more exotics in, or when they bring more exotics in, I'm pretty sure they will do for Season 4, and they might lock one behind Nightmare, and they might say, oh, Kenley College is now locked off to the expansion, go purchase our expansion to fucking continue playing our game. But I really hope that more time, effort and thought goes into the exotics, because we've not had a good exotic for a long time. To put it into perspective, I'm still running the Pestilence. That's like the best one out there. But that's going to do it for the video. Let me know your thoughts and stuff in the comments. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Thank you for watching.